Okay. Okay. Mine is, should I use my formal name or my regular name? Mine is Julia Patricia Mary Manning Breen. I was born in 1929 on September 13th in Germantown. My parents were James Manning, Mary Sweetie. Now I'm going to cry. Okay. Uh, my mother died when I was 5, and my sisters and I went to an old girls' school. I hate to call it a home. I know it was a home, but I call it a girls' school. It just makes me think better. I was not in school. There was only two of us that were not in school, Sweetie McCormick and myself. Sweetie was a year younger than I. I don't know how old she was when she was first went to them, but I know she was 4 and I was 5. And we would play together, and the sister in the kitchen liked Sweetie a lot. And I used to send her in all the time to get cookies or whatever I wanted, apples or whatever. One time, Surrender came out and yelled at me, Patsy Manning, stop sending Sweetie in here getting you. If you want something, you come in and ask for it. That's about all I can remember. I don't remember being at home at all. I kind of remember, I don't know whether because I was told through the years or because I do remember, when my mother was buried, I put a bead up my nose and had to take me to the hospital, and I had stitches on the side of my nose to get the bead out. I don't remember. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mary and I did not go to the funeral. Kay and Nellie did. I guess somebody was watching us. I don't remember. I don't remember much about first and second. I don't remember much about school. I hated school. I was not a real good student. I don't know whether... I don't think I was dumb. I just think I wasn't interested. I'd rather be out playing anything rather than be in school. We had first and second grade together, third and fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth. And I don't remember a whole lot about school. I remember after school, we would get changed and then we could go play. And then we came in for dinner. We had our main meal. We went to school at the home. I don't think I made that clear. We went to school at the home. So we had our main meal at lunchtime. And just like fruits, vegetables, no, not vegetables, but fruits and cakes and toast and stuff like that for dinner. Then during the school year, whatever duty you had, like you had a duty, and every 3 or 6 months, I'm not sure when it got changed. But say if it was in the refectory, then you had to do the dishes and sweep the floor. Then we had a study period, and we all went up to our classrooms from 7, I don't know whether it was from 7 to 8 or 6 to 7. I don't know what my sister said. I think it was 7 to 8 when you got older. It might have been 6 to 7 when you were younger, because we went to bed early. Went to bed about 7 till we got into 6th grade. From the 1st to the 6th grade, or the 5th grade, slept in a dormitory. Well, we all slept in dormitories, but in the lower floor. Then when you went in 6th grade, you went up to the top floor. In each dormitory, there was 2 cells, and 2 nuns stayed on the same floor. that you were in.
Where did you, so you don't remember where you lived before you went to Gonska?
Yeah, we lived in Germantown, either on Blakemore Street or Matthew Street. I think it was Blakemore. It was Blakemore because up the street was Dubin's. The McCarthys lived on that street. We lived next door to the McCowies. And I don't know who was on the other side. But that's where we did live. Because Daddy used to take us back there to visit after we got in the home. Kathy, you'll have to ask me more questions because I don't remember an awful lot.
Because you don't remember your mother at all?
No, I don't really remember my mother. Mm-mm.
And do you remember the first day you went to Gonska?
Nope. Nope. I don't remember any of that.
So you don't remember being scared? Or?
No, I don't, Kathy. I probably was, but I just don't remember. I think the four of us hung together pretty much until we got to know other kids, because I know if one of us got hit, all of us would cry. So we had to, kind of much stay together, I guess.
You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So how old were you when your mother died?
I was 5 years old when my mother died. Nellie said she died in September. Kay said she died in October. I don't know when she died. Probably there is a death certificate somewhere. I don't have it. Then my father, from what I understand, had a woman come in to take care of us, and that just didn't work out. Excuse me. He went to the priest and asked the priest what should he do, and the priest said, my aunts offered to take us, but each aunt could only take one of us. And my father didn't want to separate it. So when my father went to the priest, he suggested that we go in the home. Daddy came every day, even before he went to work there. He never missed a day coming to see us. Really didn't. He was a great man.
Did you have a lot of girlfriends there?
Yeah. I had, there was, of course, a bunch of kids. Now, as I got older, what I remember, I didn't hang with my sisters. I had Mary Nollick and I were buddy-buddy. And then there was a Peggy Snyder and Miriam Welsh. And you had fights with Mary Nollick. And you wouldn't play with her for a day, so you'd play with a bunch of other kids. We would play, we had swings and seesaws and sliding boards, and we had a maypole. And we had a woods. We, at the time, thought it was a big wooded area, but now when you look at it, it really wasn't all that big. But to us, we were little, it was big. We had a baseball diamond. We played baseball almost every night. We had a tennis court, but never had any rackets or balls. There was a tennis court. We used to roller skate a lot. And I was very good at roller skating. And we played Lalo Sheepy. That was, say, two groups of kids. And maybe there'd be 10 or 15 in a group. And you would all hide, and then the other group would look for you, and it wasn't over until every last one of you was found. So you could hide in all different places. Mostly we hid outside because you weren't supposed to hide in the Gonska, but if we could, we would. We had a big attic and had closets with drawers not drawers, shelves in there. And we would go up there and hide. And one time we were playing, and a kid fell out of the closet. She was on like a top shelf and broke her arm, so we all got in trouble. And we weren't allowed to play there anymore. We weren't supposed to play there in the first place, so we all did get in trouble.
When you got in trouble, what kind of trouble would you get into? What kind of punishments?
Yeah, like you weren't allowed to go to the movies, or I think I don't mean. I mean, I remember getting smacked, but I don't remember being like put in a corner, Kathy. I think basically it was you weren't allowed to go to the movies, because we did go to the movies a lot.
Who would pay for you to go to the movies?
Well, the Walton was on Chelton Avenue, which was maybe say 10 blocks from the Gonzaga. And if they got a Shirley Temple movie in during the week, the movies only stayed at the most 3 days in any theater. And if they got a Shirley Temple movie in on Tuesday and was going to leave on a Thursday, then they would invite us to go. And the nuns would take us. We would not go to school that afternoon. We would go to the movies. Yeah. But if you were punished, you weren't allowed to go. And then on Mondays, we always went to Novena. We all walked out on a group, like there was a nun in the beginning and a nun at the end. And we all went to the shrine for Novena. But we didn't have to follow the nuns coming home, because we used to go to Miriam Welsh had a grandmother on Chew Street. We'd go there and get a nickel. Or we'd go back to Blakemore Street to Mrs. Brogan's or somebody's. You know, we didn't go to the same house every week, because there'd be Mary Nollick and myself, so you had to space it out a little bit. And they'd give you a nickel and a glass of milk and cookies or whatever. And then we'd go back to the Gonzaga again.
So, a lot of the kids had family around there?
Most of them had. No, Miriam Welsh was the only. Let me think. Miriam was the only one. She had a grandmother that lived in Chew Street, and her mother lived on Beechwood Street, which wasn't far from the home either. But the mother had to work. The father was dead, so that's why Miriam was in the home. But she went home with her mother. She had a brother at Girard College, Raymond. But Miriam went home every Friday night till Sunday night. A couple of the kids did that. The parents, like, if they were a single parent and they had to work, then they would take their children home on the weekends. I mean, you were allowed to do it. It wasn't like most people think of an institution. It wasn't that institutionalized. I mean, we did have rules and regulations, but you do, no matter where you live. We did get up early. We went to church. Mary says we didn't, but we went to church almost every day of our lives, because it was either Advent or Lent or some saint's feast day or whatever. We went to church an awful lot. We had our own chapel there. The priest would come in and say the Mass. We had an older boy. I'm trying to think. The first one I can remember was a Ford. Jimmy Ford, his name was. But he was older than I, so he was cute. And then we had a Chick Cassidy. He was funny looking. And then we had a Scotty Grant. Well, he was my boyfriend. We would go to the movies like we were in, say, 7th or 8th grade. Now, I would pay my way in, and he would pay his way in, and we'd hold hands. Then he was Scottish. He was living with his aunt and uncle on Grange Street. Scotty went back to England when the war broke out, and he joined the RAF, and he was killed.
How did you find out he was killed?
Because his aunt and uncle his aunt and uncle and his cousins and all used to come in the Gonzaga. Everybody from around the neighborhood would come in and out. It was not, as they say, a real institution. It was an institution, but it wasn't like you would think of, like a jail or something like that. It wasn't like
reform school.
It wasn't reform school, right? Like, we did have gates around the place. I mean, fences, but there was two big gates that were never closed. I never remember those gates being closed.
Why would other people go in and out of there?
Some of the kids would come in to play on the amusements, on the swings and all that we had, because in those days, not many people had that kind of thing. It wasn't like years later, everybody had them in their backyard. That was right after the Depression, or maybe at the height of the Depression, right? Right after it. And a lot of people didn't have. I mean, as far as like being dressed, we were dressed very well. I mean, we always had like a coat, and I don't remember having gloves and galoshes. Nellie said we did, I don't remember. But I mean, we always had food, where a lot of kids didn't. They had to go and stand in those lines to get cheese and stuff like that, because they didn't have any, their parents couldn't find jobs.
So were you ever hungry?
Well, we would get hungry, Kathy, because we had basically 3 meals a day. We didn't have a lot of snacks. At lunchtime, we had a bread can. And whatever bread wasn't eaten at whatever meal went into this bread can. And the nuns, from the nuns or from the kids, sometimes there would be pieces of Danish or pieces of cakes or something in there also. Well, at recess time, when you went to the home, they would bring out the bread box. It was like a tin, yay high. And you'd run and grab whatever you could grab out. If you were lucky enough, you were there first and got the piece of cake or whatever it was.
Did you usually get there first?
A lot of times they did as I got older.
And, but you used to take food too, right?
Yeah, when you got when you stop being afraid of everything, then you would sneak into the storeroom, which was right beside. The refectory was here, and then outside of the refectory were 2 big sinks where the dishes were done. Well, right beyond that was a big room that was called the storeroom. Now, every day, the bread man, the milkman, and all came. Now, we used to get Freihoffer's bread and Freihoffer's cakes. Now, they were delivered, I'm sure, every day. Peanut butter we got in big vats. Jelly, of course, in big vats. That was all in the storeroom. Well, every once in a while, you'd get the key in the kitchen and open the storeroom and steal the boxes of cakes or whatever you wanted. Peanut butter you'd put in a, a piece of wax paper and make a little hole in the top and just squeeze it out into your mouth. And we did that.
And if you took a big box of something, would you share it with the other kids?
Oh, yeah. Well, you never went in by yourself. You usually had a companion or, yeah. Because one would cheese it and the other would take it. Now, Kay used to take things by herself. But she would take, like, lemons, goofy things that not many other people would want. They did give us apples in the afternoon. Apples or oranges. They did give us that. But at night, once you had your supper, they called it, then you didn't get anything, Kathy, from that time till you went to bed. And you didn't eat again till the next morning. And as they say, 9 times out of 10, you went to Mass. So you might have been up an hour or so before we had, in the morning we had cereal, bread and butter, and milk. As much as you wanted of any of them. We all had our places in the refectory. And in the wintertime, of course, it was hot cereal, but in the summer and the spring, it was cold cereal. They made the best hot cereals. Strangely used to make them in great big restaurant pots, I guess that's what they are. And we had Martin's milk. And they came in great big, I don't know how many gallon galvanized cans. It was so good. Their peanut butter was the best I ever tasted. Everything they got was good, I think. Except their meals were kind of lousy. We had a lot of lamb stew, which I hated. Ugh. We had, like, I think, beef stew one day and lamb stew one day. It wasn't much of a variety of food. It was basically the same thing all the time because they cooked in such quantity. Now, when you got older, I worked in the kitchen a lot. And then I ate real well because whatever the nuns ate, I ate. I mean, not that I was supposed to, but I would be out in Starangela. Basically, what you did was peel potatoes and things like that. But every once in a while, she'd ask you to help her bread something or something. And then you always got, when you cleaned the nuns thing, and then you got to eat it. My father ate in the kitchen also. Yeah.
So when you worked in the kitchen, would you see him?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, because that's where he would come in and eat. Like, and the nuns, they always fed Daddy very well. He had all 3 meals there. He had a nice breakfast, and then at lunchtime, of course, he had his big meal also. But he would have whatever the nuns were having, he would have.
Did they like him?
Oh, yeah, very much. Yeah, very much so. When we first went there, Daddy didn't work there. Then a Charlie McGibbet worked there and a Mr. Fowler. Mr. Fowler was the chauffeur. And he also took care of the fires. Charlie McKibbet, I think, did the yard work and all. Charlie was hunchback, and he lived in the old house. He slept over there. Mr. Fowler lived across the street with his family. He had a wife, and I forget how many children he had. He was very refined man, but he was basically the chauffeur. They had a big, I don't know what kind, I think it was a Buick, but with the glass between.
So what was the name of the home?
It was called St. What was it? St. Aloysius Gonska. Yeah, I think that's what it was called, Kathy. St. Aloysius Gonska. Yeah.
And who woke you up in the morning?
The nuns, one of the nuns. I don't think it was the same nun every day, but it was a nun that woke you up. And at Christmas time, I mean, they would just woke you up every day. They come in and put on all the lights and just say, come on, it's time to get up. It's St. Bartholomew's feast day. We have to go to church. The days you didn't have to go to church, you could sleep a little longer. I don't know how much longer, maybe 15, 20 minutes, I don't know. But on Christmas, they would come up, like a couple of the nuns and then a group of the kids singing and all holding candles. And that was beautiful. The Christmases there were beautiful. You had, in the dormitories, beside your bed, you had a chair, and that's where your clothes were every night. You put your clothes there. And when you got up in the morning, we folded our nightgowns and put them under our pillow, I think. But for Christmas, we all had everything new from head to toe. And that was beside our bed. And we'd get dressed real quick and go. I don't remember forming a line to go to Mass. Because we usually had to form a line like to go to school and to go into the refectory and all. But I don't remember forming a line to go to church. We probably did, but I don't remember. Then we'd go to Mass. And then we'd have breakfast, and then we'd go up. We had a big room, and we called it the clothes room. But in that room, they had a stage, and they had folding chairs, like anything that was done, like any musical or stage show or whatever, was held in the clothes room. And the reason we called it the clothes room, on Wednesdays we took sewing lessons there from Lizzie. Lizzie McDermott, I think her name was. She's been there forever and ever and ever. She was an elderly woman. I would say probably in her late 40s, early 50s. Oh, I'm not sure because I was a kid and she looked old to me. And she was on crutches. I forget what was the matter. She had a big shoe, a big boot, and it was all built up. And I don't know what happened to Lizzie, because she was like that when I met her. But she would sit in the front. She would use the sewing machine, and we sewed by hand. And then, you didn't do that till you were like in 5th or 6th grade. And then you'd take it up to her, and she'd examine it. If she didn't like it, she pulled it out, and you had to go down and do it again. So we didn't like Lizzie a lot. But that's why we called it the clothes room, because of taking sewing lessons there. And on Christmas then, we had a priest, or it was usually, I don't know who dressed up as Santa Claus, but somebody did dress up as Santa Claus. And he would go on the stage, and all the presents would be up there, and we'd all be sitting on chairs down in the audience, like. And he would call out your name, and you would go up on stage and get whatever present you were getting. How we got our presents is they had, what do you call it? It wasn't an auxiliary. Yeah, it was an auxiliary. But a lot of those people weren't ever in the home. But they would give out names to different people, and they would buy, like, say somebody had my name. And then they would buy me a gift, and that's what I would get. And it was like sometimes you got good stuff, and sometimes you got junk. It was according. Sometimes you got used stuff. One year I got skates. I think that was the best present I ever got in my whole life. And Mary the person that had her, I think her husband was an undertaker. But Mary got a beautiful check suit, and she got so many things that year, and I forget the woman's name. I did know it, but I forget it. But yeah, as I say, you never knew what you were getting. And I'm sure when we were little, we got dolls. I just forget. I was never much of a doll person myself. But the skates I did love. And I don't think... Well, anyway, then Daddy would come, and we would go to one of our aunts for Christmas dinner. And Christmas was always a beautiful day. A couple of times when we got older, and we didn't want to go to the aunts anymore, Daddy would take us to the movies in town, and then to Litton's for dinner. Easter's, now I'm trying to remember Easter's. Oh, when we got down into the refectory, on Christmas morning, we all had a box of candy at our plates, which was cute. And they sang beautiful hymns. It was really nice. Easter. I don't think we had Easter baskets. You'll have to ask my sisters. I don't remember. But I know we had the coconut eggs and the hard-boiled eggs and the jelly beans. And then after Easter, like the stores would donate whatever they didn't sell to the home. And one of the stores would send in its great big coconut cream egg. It was enormous. And every day after school, one of the nuns would cut a piece, and we'd all stand in line and get a piece of this coconut cream egg. It was great. Until it was gone, they did that. In the summer,
That's right frame there. I don't know if you're saying. Okay. Great. Okay, that's beautiful. Perfect.
not long after school was out, I don't know whether it was the week after school was out, but it was the early part of the summer. All the, we called it Orphans Outing. And everybody, we would go to Woodside, all the homes. Like there was ours, the Gonskin, there was the media, and there was like a couple boys' homes, but from all over the area. Like, I guess this part of Pennsylvania. We all went to Woodside. It was just for the homes that day. In the morning, you went swimming, and then you would have lunch, and it was always great lunch. Now, I don't know whether Woodside provided the lunch or whether the homes did. I don't remember. But then in the afternoon, all the amusements were free. And that lasted, say, till 5 o'clock. And we'd all get in the buses and go back to our... But that was a great day. We loved Orphans Outing because then you saw boys, too, because you really didn't see too many boys because we lived in a home with little girls, except an older boy, you know, who would come once morning to say Mass. Then...
Well, would you then hang around with the boys that day, swimming and things?
Well, you just think somebody was cute and like keep your eye on them, but you really didn't talk to them. You know how girls are when they're that age, kind of goofy as the boys. No, you really didn't. Unless it was like the McCormicks had two brothers, Bussy and Johnny, that were in another home. And of course we knew them because they would come up on Sundays to see Dolly, Winnie, and Sweetie. So we knew Bussy and Johnny. The Morgans had a brother or two brothers. Oh, Peggy Morgan was another good friend of mine. Peggy Morgan is the one that when the media kids moved into Gonzaga, she had a fight with Emily Maida. And I was over in the old building. I don't know who I was with, but anyway, Peggy Morgan comes running up and she said, Patsy, Emily Maida's going to beat me up. And I said, well, she'll have to hit me first. She comes in and she whams me right across the face. Whoom, I went. So then we started this great big fight. And the nuns had to come and pull us apart, and we were both in trouble. We were both in trouble for a couple of weeks.
What kind of trouble were you
Like not being able to go out, and I forget, Kathy, how they punished us. But at the time, we thought it was a big deal, but it wasn't, you know, whatever. But anyway, the rest of the summer, every year they had a retreat at the Gonskin. That was different nuns from different homes would come for a week and stay at our home, and they weren't allowed to speak or anything. It was a retreat. Now, when they came, we had the old house. I think that's where they slept because all the stuff then at the end of before they came, we had to bring down these bureaus from the attic and the big pitchers and the bowls underneath of it and set up towels and soaps and stuff like that in all these rooms for the nuns that were coming in for this retreat. And we were not allowed to be in the building that much. We had to, like, they used to say, stay behind the hedges. When you came out of the Gonzaga, there was a fat cement, we called it. Then there was hedges, and then there was the ball field, and the tennis court was down that way. And then it was the wooded area. Well, they wanted us to stay more in the wooded area, not to go up like on the fat cement or anything, to be out of the way of the nuns. We didn't like when it was retreat time, because you really had to be kind of quiet. But then we would have, there was I don't know who took us, we used to go once a year to this, it was a seminary that had a lake. Was it in Langhorne? Yeah, I think it was in Langhorne. And they would hire this couple of big trucks. And that's how they would take us to Langhorne, and we'd spend all day there. And it was a lake, and you could go swimming, and they'd bring these really nice picnic lunches. And we would sing on the trucks. We're the girls from the Gonzaga home you hear so much about. The people stop and stare at us whenever we go out. As we go riding, the band begins to what? Oh, I forget. But that's what we used to sing. Real loud.
Can't remember the end?
No. You'll hear us shouting, the girls' guns go home, we're on their way. Then, that's about, well, like we didn't, once I can remember, we went down the shore for the day, Daddy and the four of us, with Mr. McCall had a car, and he took us down. Oh, no. Once we went down on the train, the whole of the kids. And Nellie and I, they took our picture and put it in the paper. Neither one of us have it. Isn't that a shame? Because we didn't wear shorts or skirts, slacks or anything when we were young. But Nellie and I each had an outfit. It was the same. And it was like a sunsuit with a skirt that came with it and the skirt buttoned down the front. And as we were getting on the train, they took a picture of us for the record, I think it was called. And it was in the record. And we did have it for a while, but then it got lost. I don't know where it is.
What newspaper was it in?
The Record, I think it was called. That was the morning paper at the time. We didn't have we had the Record in the morning and the Bulletin in the afternoon. We didn't have the Inquirer then or the Daily News. That was years ago.
I thought that your father used to bring the Inquirer on Sundays.
Yeah, but it was the Record. It wasn't the Inquirer. It was called the Record.
Tell me about that.
It was just much like it is today, except...
No, about him bringing the paper for you.
Oh, yeah. He would come in the morning after church and always bring a bag of candy on Sunday morning, penny candies, and then bring the paper. And then lots of Sundays he took us out. But I'm not saying every Sunday he did. And as we got older, we really didn't want to go because we would go visiting our relatives who we weren't thrilled to death with, and I'm sure they weren't thrilled to death with us either. Aunt Nellie's, we always had a good time at Aunt Nellie Gallagher's, not Aunt Nellie Sweeney. Aunt Nellie Sweeney was fine, don't get me wrong. But Aunt Nellie Gallagher was a sweetheart. She's Tommy and Jean's an old mother. My Aunt Mary lived in Mount Airy. That was my father's sister. My Aunt Teresa lived in Germantown on Price Street. That was my father's sister. My Uncle Packy wasn't married then. He lived in a room as my father lived in a room. And my Aunt Nellie Gallagher lived in Germantown. My mother's sisters all lived in West Philly. Yeah, and her brother. Aunt Kitty never married. Uncle Patty was married to Aunt Julia and Aunt Nellie Sweeney. They lived on the same street. And Aunt Kitty lived with whoever she was working for at the time. She was what'd they call them? Living-in ladies, I think that's what they called them. She was a cook. And the people, the Downtons, they lived in one of those brownstones in town, and we used to go in there. They had a beautiful home. And then they had a place in Ambler, was their summer home. And a couple of times through the years, Daddy did take us to Ambler, to Aunt Kitty's place. But it was, now we were in Germantown, but to get to Aunt Kitty's, we'd have to take the 26 trolley car, the subway, to go and get the train to go to Ambler. And it took us like forever to get there, and here it's right around the corner. It just seems so strange when you get older and things are a little more convenient, because we thought it was like further than the shore. It seemed to take us that long to get there and get home. And that was always a nice day. But Aunt Kitty was cute. She was very good to us. But she was a little on the strict side. She never had children. So you couldn't do a whole lot, when you went. Just visited, had lunch, and went home again. Of course, the Downtons weren't there because the Aunt Kitty couldn't let you come if the Downtons were there.
Would you goof off on the trains?
No, no, not with Daddy, no. He was just sit there and, like, even when we went, when we were little and go visiting our aunts and all, Daddy would sit the four of us on the couch and we didn't move. We did not move. Oh, we had another aunt that lived in Camden, my mother's sister. First they lived on a farm and then they moved into the city. Yeah, Aunt Annie. And somebody asked me a little while ago, I think it was you, Kathy, where did we get the money to go to the movies? The movies were only 10 cents then. And Daddy gave us each 50 cents a week. So we would go to the movies and you could get, God, you could get a bottle of soda for a nickel. You could get penny candy for a penny. You could get a Jewish pickle for a nickel. You could get a bag of chips for a nickel. So we could, with that 50 cents, we could go to the movies and have something to eat both Saturday and Sunday. And there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different theaters that we could walk to. And as I say, each theater only kept a movie for 3 days, so you could go to the movie 7 days a week and never see the same movie.
And would you go with your sisters or with other girls?
Yeah, whatever, whoever wanted to go. You'd say, like, we always had a paper. I don't know where they got the paper. I guess the priest, they bought it for the priest. Maybe they had it delivered for the priest. But one of the high school kids always would have a paper and say, there's this playing at the Walton or the Allen or whatever. And you'd say, who wants to go to the movies? And whoever wanted to go, excuse me, had to go up and knock on the, what did they call that room? The nun's room. Oh my God, it won't come to me. But the nuns had a room. Now, there was no television in those times or anything, but a community room, it was called. And they would all go in there on their free time and talk. They had candy in there and I guess sodas or whatever they drank. And they would just talk amongst themselves like kind of like a playtime or whatever you want to call it. But if you wanted to go to the movies, you had to go up, knock on the community door and ask Sister Carmelite if you could go to the movies. Now, they used to publish a sheet every week of what movies were acceptable for children and what weren't. So we would always tell her it was a Gene Autry movie or it was a Roy Roger movie or whatever, and she'd let us go. She never checked. And we knew if we said those number, like Lassie or something, we were safe. We could have gone to see Gone with the Wind, who was, phew, you weren't allowed to see Gone with the Wind because they said damn in it. But the church had a lot more control over things like that than, of course, they do today. You know, I mean, they would condemn a movie and you weren't allowed to go to see it.
What if you saw one of the movies that you weren't supposed to see and you got caught or something? Did that ever happen?
No. Mm-mm. No. I remember once, though, Kay snuck out of the Gonska to go to the movies and my father caught her. Yeah.
So what happened?
Well, he walked her home and put her through the window so she wouldn't get in trouble.
And Sister Carmelita, she was in charge?
Sister Carmelite was the superior, yeah. She didn't teach her anything. She did all the office work, all the bills, and she took care. She ran the whole show. She was a very, very good nun. She was a kind. Of all the nuns that were there, I would say Sister Carmelite was the most nun-like. A lot of them, like Sister Esther and Sister Maya, they were only young kids, like 19, 20 years old. I don't even know if they really wanted to be nuns. You know, years ago, I think every Catholic family wanted their daughter to be a nun. And I think a lot of them went in just, I don't know that for a fact. This is just what I feel, because they weren't very nun-like. They were like people. You know, like Sister Carmelite was like a nun, because she was a good person. Where Sister Maya was not a nice person at all. No way, shape, or form. Sister Mia was a mean, vindictive woman. She should never have been a nun, been to raise young people, young girls. She was a smart woman, very smart woman. Good teacher. She could read, like, read a book to you and you'd swear you were there, where it was taking place. But she wasn't a good person. Sister Gervais was a sweet woman, but she was kind of like, everybody kind of walked all over Sister Gervais because she was kind of dopey. Sister Rita and Sister Esther. Sister Rita was always very nice to me, so I can't say anything against her. I don't think our Kay liked her too much because she wasn't nice to Kay, and neither was Sister Esther. Oh, and we had another nun, and she was the nurse. Sister Esther, her name was. That's when we first went there. She was the perfect nun, even more so than Sister Carmelite. Sister Esther was just a sweetheart. But she wasn't there too long, and then they were only there a certain amount of time, and then they changed them around to different places. And
do you have any particularly strong memories of any of them in particular?
good or bad?
Run-ins, like Aunt Kay said she had a problem with Sister Mia, I think, and she pulled her down the steps by her hair.
Yes, Sister Mia did. Sister Mia, yes, Sister Mia, as I say, was not a nice person. One time I remember really she had a shoe, and I was in the Jinx. The Jinx was a big room with like 6 toilets. I don't know, there could have been 8, there could have been 10. I'll say 6 toilets, and that's where we used as the bathroom most of the time. It was a self-flushing. It flushed every few minutes. Anyway, it was a big room, and in the middle of it had a big drain. It was concrete, and I had lost a shoe that I had just gotten, and she kept hitting me with the other shoe all around the Jinx. And as I was running around away from her, I was wetting my pants. And then she'd stop and make me go in and sit in the toilet, and then I couldn't go to the bathroom. And then I'd come out and she'd hit me again, and I'd wet my pants again. I think that was because I lost the other shoe. I don't remember correctly, but I think that's the only time I've gotten hit a lot, but a lot of times I deserved it. But that was the only time I really got hit badly that I remember it. Kay got hit a lot. Kay really did. One morning, Sister Esther and Sister Mia, and not Sister Mia, Sister Esther and Sister Rita beat her up. R.K. 2 nuns. Yeah.
2 nuns together.
2 nuns together beat R.K. up.
What for?
I don't know. I don't know what she had done before, but this was in the morning. I mean, she had been asleep, and they woke her up, beating her up. And I remember all of us sitting up in our beds, screaming, "Leave my sister alone." She didn't tell you that? Kay didn't tell you that?
She told me one story, but not about 2.
Uh-huh. I'm almost sure it was maybe it was. Did she say Sister...
She said one of the nuns woke her up by slapping her across the face.
Yeah, that's the one. There was only the one nun, though. See, I thought it was 2. I thought it was both of them, Sister Esther and... I mean, not Sister Esther. Sister Rita and Sister Benedicta. Maybe I'm wrong. Kate's life. So she's more right than I am. Let me see.
Well, when other girls, I'm sure other girls got hit too.
Oh, yes. Oh, sure. Not just us. Sure.
But I mean, would other girls say, did you guys ever yell back at these nuns or anything to tell them to stop it?
Not too often, Kathy. Now, see, it was such different times. Not only different times, it was the whole environment. We lived with these people. And they were like our, I would say parents, but they were the ones that told you what to do and what not to do. So you really didn't answer back too much. Or if you did, you ran like hell, so they wouldn't catch you. Because you didn't want to get hit again. Not that they beat us with anything, like a stick or anything. I can remember a couple of times in school getting hit with a stick, but one of those, not a ruler, one of those round things that they, but not, I would never say I was bruised or anything because of, no, not that I remember anyway.
Well, what about when you and Aunt Mary, what happened when you and Aunt Mary had to leave there?
Well, on Saturdays when the media jakes moved in, we used to have our dinner at lunchtime. It was on a Saturday. And they used to have it like cafeteria style, I guess. And you went by tables. And Mary was in high school. We were in high school. And I think hers was like the last table or something. And she was sitting there banging her fork. The tables were always set for the next meal. And when you washed and dried the dishes, you set the tables again. And Mary had her fork or knife, whatever she had, and she's banging the glasses. Sister Emily, who was originally from the media, a media jake, told Mary to stop it and get out of the refectory. And Mary said, I'm hungry. And Sister Emily said, get out of the refectory. And as Mary was walking through the doors to go down the hall, Sister Emily ran after her and grabbed her, took the sleeve out of her sweater, that's how hard she grabbed her, and threw her down on the floor. Well, then I came out, and Sister Emily's on top of our Mary, so I just sat on top of her and beat the hell out of her and knocked her cornet off. Then they asked us to leave the home because they said they couldn't let things like that happen. But if it was Kay, I wouldn't have done anything because Kay could fight back herself. Mary couldn't. Mary never did. She was not a fight cat, or Mary, or Nellie. Just Kay and I.
So then what happened? Where did you go?
Then, well, Daddy, the nun called. It was Sister Mary Walsh, I think. That was the superior then. She called us up and she said, I have to, and Daddy was with us. I have to ask you to leave, we can't have that here. We can't have the children hitting the nuns, I could understand. I couldn't at the time, but I do understand that. So there was a couple, Joy McGevitt. Joy and what was his name? It was Veronica's brother. Veronica, the teacher, the sewing teacher. Her brother and his wife lived in Germantown. We went there for a couple of days. Then Daddy, we hated it there. It was weird. Mary and I were always together.
What was so weird about it?
They were just weird. Charlie would sneak around through the night and all. They never had children, and Julie was always yelling at, and Charlie was just weird. He was scary.
What was he sneaking around?
I don't know, probably gone down to get a drink or something because Julie wouldn't let him have a drink, or I don't know, maybe even a cigarette, I don't know. I mean, he never bothered me at all. I don't think he ever did Mary either. But he was weird. Just scary like. Then from there, Kathy, I know at one point I went to Dr. Brophy's. He was a dentist. He was the dentist from the Gonska. Now, Mary didn't go because they just wanted me. They didn't want Mary. I had the whole third floor in their house. They had a beautiful house in, I guess you'd call it West Oak Lane in St. A's Parish. It was a big single home. It was a beautiful home. And I had the whole third floor. Beautiful bedroom. But I had to do all the work in the house. I mean, I had to scrub the floors and clean the bathroom and do everything. And I really didn't like it. They had two boys. And, and plus, I guess I wanted to be with Mary or somebody I knew. I didn't know anybody but my sisters at this point because we'd just left the home. And there was no kids around there that I knew. So then Daddy got us into Kaufman's. Kaufman's lived on Church Lane, no, on Worcester Street, right across the street from the Gonska. Mary and I lived there. She was a doll, Mary Kaufman, a sweetheart. She had 2 little girls. Joe was in the service. We stayed there till Joe came home from the service. Then we moved into Quartz's, which was like 2 blocks up on Grange Street in Belfield. Mary and I stayed there. Why did we leave Quartz's? Now, Daddy at this time was paying $10 a week for each one of us, which was a lot of money in those days. It really was. At Quartz's, she would cook on Sunday. She would cook like a roast and put the potatoes and the carrots and all around this roast. And she would have it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. She didn't have it on Friday because then you weren't allowed to eat meat on Friday. So that's all you had. So Daddy took us from there, and then we went to live with Schubert's.
Sorry, we're going to have to stop there.